Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, the host of the Leaders Up podcast. Today, I'm talking with Patricia, an amazing lady I get to know. We get to talking a few weeks ago. We had one or two beautiful conversations. She's from Texas, currently based in Portugal, Braga, for the last year. She's just like me, an explorer, slow traveler, exploring the world. She has a very interesting background. She she worked at NASA for 15 years. Corporate world for 20. Yeah, she was an IT consultant, a lot of good stuff. And yeah, very interesting. And now she's working with Astrology and helping not just corporate people who are making good money, but their heart is not into it, but also people or businesses are looking for the passion, and she helps them find their passion, their purpose, their voice, their mission. And one way she does that is through leveraging the power and wisdom of astrology. And that's something that we want to, very interesting. Her business name is something that very beautiful, that really caught my attention. The Cosmic Energy Coaching. Wow, beautiful. And yeah, so lots of things we can unpack. But anyways, without any further ado, Patricia, welcome to the show, my friend. Oh, and this is episode 303. So
Ooh, I like that. Lots of threes. Those are good numbers.
Yes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. Pleasure of mine. So how are you doing today? I know for you, here is 10 to 5 in the afternoon. For you is what? Almost noon?
It is not quite. No, it's 10 till 10.
Oh,
so
wow. Early morning. Okay. You have your coffee. You're ready?
I've had my coffee. I have another cup going here, and I'm ready to go.
All right. So let's get ready. Started. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll. All right. So tell us, for people who don't know you, who's Patricia as a person, as a human being, as a woman? We're going to talk about the business side after, but as a person, as a human being, as a woman, who's Patricia?
Who am I? Wow, that's a complex question and a simple question. All in one.
I know.
Right? The first thing that popped in my head when you were asking me that is the fact that I am, there's a lot of words for this. I'm a Renaissance soul, right? I have I'm multi-passionate. What's the other word they use? Multi-potentialite. I've heard it called scanner. I have so many interests. And I love learning. I have a curiosity. In fact, curiosity is one of my top 5 values. So, and much like yourself, I suppose, we like to go visit new places and see new things and learn about new cultures. And, since a child, I've been learning languages or, just I have an interest in something, go to the library and get a book. Now we have the internet, which makes it even more exciting and overwhelming. But I have so many different passions and interests. So I think that's part of what makes me who I am. Friends and family are always like, oh my gosh, what are you doing now? Like something new again, but I think it keeps it interesting and exciting. I used to work with people in the corporate world that didn't want to retire, not because they loved it so much, but they were terrified of what they would do when they retired. They had nothing, to fall back on or interest. And I could not comprehend that at all, because I had a list of 100 things I wanted to do when I retired. I don't even like that word. What does that mean? But yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. We'll unpack all of that in a moment. So I'd like to first start this conversation, first of all, by asking a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you as a person. Ready?
Okay.
All right.
Pressure on. Oh my gosh.
Right. So tell us, what makes you happy?
Family and friends.
What makes you smile?
My grandson and baby animals.
Oh, beautiful. Now, what makes your heart sing, and what makes your soul set on fire and makes you come alive?
Oh gosh. Oh, I think what makes me oh, that's a tough one. There's so many things. I feel like I'm on a game show and I'm not doing very much.
You are. You might win a prize at the end.
Oh, good. I honestly, I love seeing other people come alive.
Love that. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Oh, gosh, here we go. The state of the world sometimes, how people treat other people, the fact that we can't just all live our own lives in peace, and yeah.
I'm with you on that. Now, what scares you?
Probably that same thing. um, because yeah, it's like where you put your focus. You can see so much good in the world, but then you see these horrible things, and sometimes I just get this like, like, we're still here. Are we ever going to get out of this cycle? Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Now, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Okay. I think I have a couple, but the one that popped in my head was I have the ability to okay, what's the word for it? I'm going to say this may not be the right word, but it's kind of like find the themes, find the connections. Even so, I've done a lot of different things in my life, and I feel like the one thing that kind of connects like what I'm doing in all of them, even if on the surface they look like very different things, is I'm finding I'm hearing or seeing, observing the connections between things. So like being able to take different conversations, different things people are saying, different ideas, different, whatever, and find the thread, like find the connecting patterns in that.
So like taking all kinds of ingredients from everywhere and make a soup out of it. Okay, beautiful.
Exactly. There you go.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. Okay.
Don't ask me to actually make a soup though, because I'm not
Oh,
gonna.
now I'm disappointed. I was getting excited. All right. Now, when was the last time you had a really, really good laugh, the type that makes your cheek almost, tired because you cramps?
Oh my gosh, I do that all the time. So it's gonna. Oh, I know I was doing it on Sunday. So what are we? We're on Tuesday. So 2 days ago for sure. I was with some other friends, female friends, who are also into kind of woo-woo things. And we were in my living room. And I honestly, you're gonna probably want to know what it was we were laughing about, and I can't honestly remember. Because we were just doing it a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't remember.
It's okay. No worries.
Exact why, but
What
that
matters,
was.
what matters is that you actually laughed a lot. What it was about doesn't matter,
Yeah, and I think the day before it was with my family, and we were watching something funny on TV, and we were all, rolling over laughing. So
Beautiful. What is one thing that you used to value that you don't value anymore?
Ooh,
Ooh.
interesting. I think I used to value that I don't value anymore. Perfectionism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe just always that next, like the next thing, the next, that feeling of, okay, when I get to this point, that's going to be, success or whatever I define that as. And then getting there and it's like, no, that's not it. And then there's always something else. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Now, on the other side, what is one thing that you didn't value that now you're valuing?
Rest.
Yes, yes, yes.
Rest and the doing nothing, what feels like doing nothing, I think is actually really not or underrated, I should say. Yeah.
Slowing down.
Slowing down, stopping, laying on the couch and watching Netflix. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Do what you enjoy doing, even if it means go smell roses. I mean, literally. you know?
Literally, yes. And not only that, I feel like I think so many of us, especially if we've grown up, in the hustle bustle world of corporate or whatever, like just the outside world pushes us to do more, and then any moment that we're literally just sitting down or stopping or taking a nap. I mean, some people are even like, oh, I got to hack my sleep, so I only need 3 hours, or like, no, like those, like I feel like those are like building blocks. Like we don't realize how much that actually helps us do the other things, right? Like you
Yeah,
actually need the downtime so that you can have more of the uptime,
yeah,
and that it's okay to just stop. Because often that's also when you let your mind stop the racing, you get lots of good ideas coming in too. So
it's absolutely. It's when you actually calm everything down, shut everything down. That's when you get the inspiration from your soul. Listen to that
yeah,
voice.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome. I get a feeling that you kind of like traveling, right? Just a little bit.
I do just a
All right.
little.
We're gonna talk about we can make an entire episode just on traveling, but I'd like to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory lane. Go back to when
Oh,
you were a kid growing up. You know, when we're kids, people around us, family, teachers, relatives, neighbors always ask us, "Hey, Patricia, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What does you answer that
yeah.
question as a little girl?
Okay, I had a couple. I had three, depending on which age we're looking at.
Yeah,
Um,
share them
at
both.
one point, I wanted to have a horse farm. I wanted to
Oh,
raise horses and yeah, and just, have stables and have people come and take riding lessons and have people, rent space for their horses there, all that, like that kind of thing. So I had that going on. Then, and then from that came, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but that didn't last too long because I realized there was like, blood and guts and death involved. Like, that's not me. That's not me. And so, and then I really, like, for a long time, and this is getting from like middle school to high school, I wanted to be an airline pilot
ooh,
very, very badly. Yeah. I took flying lessons when I was 16. I flew
wow.
gliders when I was 14. Um, and I wanted to, yeah, that was what I wanted to do. My parents were not supportive of it. And so since they were helping me pay for college, that's how I ended up being an aerospace engineer, because I was like, well, if I can't fly them, maybe I can make them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, they're two very different things, which I learned pretty quickly in my first job, that this wasn't quite what I had in mind. And I think part of it too was the travel, like you were saying, like,
Mm,
oh, I'm an airline, and I didn't want to be a flight attendant because I didn't think I'd have the patience to deal with people. So I was like, if I'm a pilot, I get like free miles and I can go places and that sort of thing too. So yeah,
yeah,
those were
beautiful.
those were my things.
Yeah. Let's stay to when you were a kid growing up. What was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate it?
I loved school. I still get excited. I'm still a little bit of a stationary, hoarder, I guess. If you could see all the notebooks I have over here and various pens and pencils and markers, I would get so excited, like the smell of that fresh notebook or my new pencils every year. I don't think I hardly ever missed any day of school growing up. And in fact, that was one of the threats my mom would give
Mm.
me. Like if I wasn't behaving or something, she would tell me I couldn't go to school the next day.
Whoa, the complete opposite of other kids, you know?
I was a total nerd. Like I was not one of the popular kids. So it wasn't for that. It was for the, again, back to the curiosity and the learning and the, yeah.
Wow. What was your
I,
favorite top subject and your least favorite subject in school?
ooh, okay. So I loved, yeah, that's an interesting question, because I kind of had a complicated relationship with that, because I loved, I loved art, which isn't
Mm,
really I guess an academic thing, but I loved art. I loved so I went to Catholic school for 12 years,
mm,
and I did love some of the, not so much like religion per se, but when we talked more of like spiritual type things, like outside of the realm of the dogma of the
mm.
Catholic Church. I liked those. Yeah, and I was really good at math and science. And so I think I liked them because I was good at them, but
Mm,
not because I had such a fascination with them, you know. And in like in high school, you know, I mean, that's how I got pushed into engineering too. Well, you're good at math and science, so that's what you should be doing. But they weren't things that lit me up.
mm.
I think in high school, especially, things that lit me up were like writing and like the literature, like those kinds of classes, and the philosophy classes. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what kind of student were you? You alluded a little bit to it. So imagine if you were in the same class in grade 10, 11. Would you be the shyer, the quiet, the nerdy type? Would you be the life of the class? Would you be the superstar, the troublemaker, the chatterbox?
I was the shy, nerdy one for sure. Yeah. I graduated fifth in my class. Oh, I loved languages too. I didn't include that one, but yeah, no, it was always for me about, yeah, I was not I was shy for sure. And I got, as I got into high school, I got less shy because I had my other kind of, and I was into drama and choir. So I had my kind of artsy fartsy crowd that I hung out with. And, you know,
Mm,
within that group, I was maybe more outgoing, but, you know, not in the larger scheme of things. I was definitely the
mm.
quiet, nerdy one that was focused on, sat in the front so I could, you know, take good notes and things like that. Yeah.
They mentioned languages. What languages did you take?
Okay, so I took French. I was speaking French at home since
Wow.
I was, but my mom wanted me to kind of have the formal education of the grammar and the, you know, learning how to write it and all that. And so I skipped French 1 and I did French level 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think, like kind of crammed in there. And then I did Spanish 1, and then I skipped 2 and did
Mm.
3. So yeah,
So because you're speaking French and Spanish or Portuguese should be pretty easy for you.
I thought it would be, and it is a killer. It is a difficult
The tonal
language.
language. It's when you read it from my perspective, you can understand pretty much everything. But when
Yeah,
you listen, especially
I can.
continental Portuguese,
You
it's not
got
easy.
it. You got it. Give me a paragraph to read, and I'm all over it. And then to have somebody, a European Portuguese, say that to me,
Continental,
and
yeah.
I'm like, I have no clue what you're saying.
I
Yeah,
speak fluent Portuguese, Brazilian, but when I listen to Portuguese people,
yeah,
I have the hardest time understanding them.
yeah. That's how I can tell if someone here is Brazilian or Portuguese. I just assume that if I'm understanding what they're saying, they must be Brazilian.
Yeah, so much
They
clearer.
actually enunciate all the syllables.
Yeah, I know. It's not like they're chewing it like almost a half mouth. I can't understand.
Yeah, they take all the vowels out.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
I
I
know.
was like, what was that?
Might be the cold.
I hope the Portuguese people, they've heard it before, I'm sure. I don't think
Yeah.
I'm telling anything new. But
Oh, I know, I know. So, and when you were in school, were you popular with the boys?
um, hmm,
Like say high school, university, and
yeah,
beyond?
yeah. Um, yeah, probably so.
Mm,
But in high school, I had a boyfriend. I mean, so yeah. And then in college, yeah. I mean, okay. So in college, I was okay. Yes. So I'll say yes.
okay.
Not like, but yes. And so I had, but then I, like in high school, I had a boyfriend. And then in college, I was one of 3 women in the entire aerospace engineering program.
So you must have been pretty damn popular for sure.
I was, we were all like celebrities, kind of. And it was funny because you would hear, like, let's say it was time to register for the next semester, you'd hear them going like, hey, you need to get into section 102 because there's a girl in it. And then later in my first job, or even my second job as an aerospace engineer, I would be walking down the hall and some guy would come up to me and go, you were in my mechanical engineering 202 class. And I'm like, I've never seen the guy, right? Because there were so many of them. And I sat in the front so I could take good notes, you know.
Nice.
So I didn't see half the class. But yeah, it was so funny. Like even then, I'd still get this kind of celebrity status of these guys remembering me from there.
Wow,
One of the
amazing.
yeah.
Do you remember what was your very first job? And do you remember how much you get paid the very first time you worked?
Yes. My very first job was at a little airstrip in Houston, Texas. It was a grass airstrip and it had a little building. And in fact, it was really hard to find. So I worked as the fixed base operator is what they called it, the FBO, like kind of making sure the airport operations were happening, you know, checking out planes to people that were renting them, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. I had a little radio for when they were coming in, but it was hard to find the field if you were flying. Like sometimes it was, if you hadn't been there before, it's hard to see from the air. So a lot of times I was on the radio and then I would have to run out, wave them down so they could find the airfield. And I got paid in flight time.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Cool. Nice. Awesome. Now let's move forward.
Okay.
How would you describe your path from the moment you left school to now? Would you say it was pretty much straightforward? Once you get into one lane, you were set for life? Or was it more like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
Oh, definitely turns and twists.
Yeah.
Definitely turns and twists. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, my first day of my first job, aerospace engineering, I knew this was not what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life.
Oops.
Yeah. And thus began the journey of, okay, well, what is it? You know, and I ended up doing it for 7 years. And then I got laid off. Our whole department got like defunded, basically. We all got laid off. And, you know, while everyone else was finding other aerospace jobs, I was like, I'm just done. Like, I just can't do it anymore. And in the meantime, I was starting to work on my MBA, because that's what engineers who don't want to be engineers do. They get an MBA and do, you know, some more business kind of oriented thing with it. But in the process of getting my MBA, I realized what I really liked were those management classes that were things like human behavior in organizations or things like that. And I started thinking to myself, well, that's really psychology. So I switched my master's to behavioral science. So I have my master's in behavioral science, psychology, basically. And then so then I ended up in IT, like, because I was trying to find some kind of psychology job, but everyone would see that I was an engineer and be like, oh, but you're an engineer. And I'm like, okay, that's irrelevant to the conversation. You know, so I didn't get hired, or they'd be like, you're overqualified, or like, you know, and I'm like, no, I want to do this thing. And it was just a hard sell. And finally, I got into, it was through a networking event, through some alumni from my college, and they were looking for a help desk manager at this company. And I got that job. I had no idea what I was doing. Thankfully, they sent me to training. I learned all about managing a help desk, and And that was my entry into kind of the technology world, or at least IT departments. And then I started learning about running them. And then I became a consultant and went around all over the US into some, major corporations. Boeing was one of the bigger ones, and helping them revamp their IT operations. And I loved it. I actually loved that job. But also in the meantime, like there were periods of time where I didn't have a job, or I was between jobs. I did massage therapy. I was a bartender. Somewhere along the way, I heard about this thing called coaching, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so I ended up getting my coaching certification. And so it has been a journey. And then, along the way too, I was learning astrology because I was fascinated with it. And then here I am today, where it's like all just come together into this astro coaching business that I do.
Wow. And you mentioned you also worked for NASA for 20 years.
No. I worked for a subcontractor to NASA, McDonnell Douglas.
Okay.
My first aerospace engineering job was designing missiles, actually.
Ooh, sexy.
For a defense company in North Texas. And I did that until the Cold War ended. So this was like the tail end of the Cold War. So I'm dating myself. When the Berlin Wall came down.
89, 90, yeah, 89.
Yep. I graduated in 86. I got my first job. That was December of 86. I graduated. And the shuttle wasn't flying because the Challenger had just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they were all in there, like trying to figure out what went wrong mode. There was no like space jobs available. There was defense because of the Cold War. It was a big industry, and a little bit of commercial. And so most of us went into the defense industry, and then they started laying off because peace was breaking out all over the world, as they were saying. And so I didn't get laid off, because I think only because I was new, like I'd only been there not quite 2 years. And so I was cheap, basically. And so they were laying people off every week. Somebody, this horde of people would go, and I was still hanging out. And I didn't even know why, because I'm like, I'm a nobody. I literally just graduated from college, and it's not like I'm a brilliant mind or anything in engineering. And finally, my dad wanted me back in Houston so badly. And around that time, they were starting to fly the shuttle again. It was about to go again. And so they were hiring big time down at in Houston, right? And so my dad was sending me, this is pre-internet, he was sending me cut out, want from the want ads in the Houston Chronicle, Boeing is hiring, Rockwell is hiring, whenever I'd get these every week. And finally, one day I got tired of wondering if I was going to be laid off next. And I just called him up, and he had called me, and he said, hey, McDonnell Douglas is having a job fair this weekend. And I called him up. I said, okay, something about getting there. He goes, just get on the next flight. I'll pay for it. Wow. So I got down there. I got 3 job offers in one day, and then there I was. So then I worked there for 5 years. So total of 7 years as an aerospace engineer, 2 in defense and 5 in the aerospace.
So what is the job of an aerospace engineer? What was your day-to-day thing?
Oh, wow. So, okay, when I worked on missiles, I was in the department called performance analysis. So we would basically take a shape, because missiles are pretty simple, change the nose, change whatever, maybe the fins, change them a little. And then we run that through a program that would analyze how far is it going, how fast, how high, and we had requirements that had to be met. So like maybe it didn't go fast enough, then I'd make some adjustment to the design to make it go faster. And so it was kind of that on repeat. When I worked on the shuttle, I was in the guidance software verification. So we would verify the software, basically that told the shuttle, like, okay, take off. And then, it does that turn, right? So that's, and then solid rocket boosters come off, that's the first stage. Then it goes out into orbit, second stage, and so on. So I worked in that first stage from liftoff until the solid rocket boosters come off, and making sure it does that turn properly. And so again, same kind of thing. We would run all these different analyses through the software, and we would determine, you know, what if, like, first of all, if the software is working and telling it to do what it should do. If we saw any anomalies, we had to report them to NASA, and we'd go to these big meetings with NASA and all the other subcontractors who were doing the same thing and report anything we saw, which that was all new since the Challenger. Like that was all the CYA stuff happening. So no company was like, hey, we found this. And, you know, nobody wanted to get blamed if anything else happened again. Yeah, so that was one of them. And then we'd also run these analysis. So there's landing spots all over the world, right? If something goes wrong. And so we would run these projections of, okay, if something goes wrong at this point, what can happen? At this point, what can happen? You know, the computer's doing it, but we're kind of running those to see, okay, it could, you know, there's a point where, okay, nothing, you can't do anything about it. Then there's a point, okay, they can land somewhere around the world. Where could they land? And then as they get further up, then okay, they could abort once around was one of them, you know, where it goes once around the globe and then can land. And so there were just various scenarios, and we would lay those all out.
Wow.
So they would know what to do at any given time. Yeah.
Fascinating. So when you're working and that and making missiles and all that, was there like an open communication between the various departments? Was it like every department was compartmentalized and nobody knew what the other department was working about?
Definitely the latter. Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
It really was.
Oh wow.
It amazed me sometimes, especially not so much when we were working with the missiles, but more with NASA, because it's so huge, and there's so many, you know, locations, and it seemed like a lot of us were doing the same thing, but weren't necessarily talking to each other. And yeah, I used to say that a lot, even like I don't understand. This seems so inefficient. Yeah.
Did you get to
and as a Virgo, like inefficient?
Oh yes, very another
well with me.
You could walk into the big boss office and tell him, hey, we need to do this way. It could be more efficient, you know. So did you at any time were, you know, invited or come across any, as they call, you know, exotic technology or exotic projects? Like to do with ships from other civilizations, like UFOs or anything like that?
No.
You can talk free. You don't want looking for them, so it's okay. I'm not gonna tag them. No, I'm joking.
No, that would have been really cool. I might have stayed if that had happened.
Oh yeah.
All right. Like I might still be there then. No. I will say one of the more fascinating things that it wasn't me, but it was when I worked in missiles. One of my colleagues got into another division, and what they did, and he had to, like, it was so we all had secret security clearance, but he had like he ended up getting a top secret, and he couldn't, like, we'd go to lunch and, you know, we'd ask him like, oh, how's work, and he'd be like, he wouldn't say anything.
Of course, yeah.
Not even good, bad, you know, nothing. But what he was doing was he was reverse engineering. So again, this was during the Cold War, so it was always like, what are the Russians doing? And so, like, there would be some satellite photo of an airplane or something that they had gotten, and he would take these photos and try to reverse engineer, what can this thing do?
Wow.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting, you know, like, yeah. Wow. But that was the most alien that we got.
Wow. So when you were working for making missiles, did you at any time come to question yourself, why am working to create something that can kill and destroy.
Yeah. Oh, every day I did.
Can I
I
use
did.
that to do something good instead? Were you asking yourself
Yeah,
that?
it's so not me. Like it's so not me. And yet it was the only job I was able to get. And
Mhm.
so, and I was at that time, actually, I had a child. I was a mom, and I was the main breadwinner, and
Sure.
I had to work. And so I would, there was like, and the way, like, I didn't necessarily justify it, but just to make myself feel better.
Mm,
Like the department I worked in was performance analysis.
mm.
There was one of the other women actually from my school also got a job at the same place. She was in the warhead department, and I always remember thinking, oh, that's worse. Like I mean, even the end, the same result happens, but somehow, like, that is the only way I could get through my day. Like, well, at least I don't work in the warhead department. Like, that just sounds way better,
Mm.
or way worse. But I do have a story about this.
Please.
So years later, I was in technology. I was actually working at a school, and they were implementing. It was one of the first schools in Houston to implement a learning with laptops program for the students. So all the students were going to get laptops, and so we had to put in a wireless network. This was all new technology back then, right? This was like cutting edge. And so as the technology, I was like there was the director of technology and me, like we were the technology team for the entire, it was an all girls private school in Houston. It went from pre-K all the way through 12, pre-kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And so anyway, so we're putting this network in, and we hired this company. It was actually, I think, General Electric, to come in and help us, install this wireless network. And so as the technology person, it was my job to work with these guys. And a lot of them were Russian, okay? And they had immigrated to the US. And so this one guy that we were working with, he and I, we ended up working late into the night together because, we were doing it like after hours. We were in the server closet, just working and just learning about each other and whatnot. And one day he tells me that his best friend, so the missiles I was designing were designed to shoot down helicopters in Afghanistan, because the Russian helicopters would pop up from a mountain, shoot, and then pop back down. So it had to go like so far, so fast, so high, to get the helicopter. So I guess I had told him this, I don't know. And he tells me that his best friend was a helicopter pilot in Afghanistan.
And he's making
And
the
he
missiles,
got
bringing
shot
them down.
down. He got shot down by a missile. And I was like, oh my God. Like, now it's real,
Oh, big
now,
time. Okay.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it.
Business is business, nothing personal. Just like in the mob movies,
Because he was so terrified as he's falling. He survived. Okay, so he's
Good.
telling the story. That's step one. He survived, and he's telling the story that he was so terrified. He's praying the whole way down. If I survive, I will build churches all over Russia. He did. So he survived, and he started churches all over Russia. So I'm like, you just don't know. Like, and I think, there's that, I don't know if it's like a Buddhist or Zen story about the old man who, it's like his son, I don't know, his son falls off the horse, and everybody's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, well, maybe not, and then the son doesn't have to go to war because he's, injured. And so it's like, see, it's a good thing. And then he's like, well, maybe not, and it's like the whole idea that you just don't know. Like, there's good, what's good, what's bad. Like, good things come out of bad things and vice versa. And yeah.
In a way, if you look at things from a spiritual perspective, you had to go through that to get his awakening, to do something that was really, truly fulfilling for him and his passion, which was helping spreading the word of God. And he had to go through
Right.
almost a near-death experience himself to, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. That's fascinating. There's so many
Yeah.
more
And not that
questions.
I'm taking credit for that. It's just
Wow.
more the idea that you really don't know. Like you don't know how anything that you do is actually affecting anyone else.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it does. It does. Big time. Because we're all
Yeah.
connected. We're all related.
All connected. Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating. Let's move forward. There's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves in our head all day long. So when you, Patricia, you were some of your darkest and most challenging times in your life. How did you change your story internally to change your reality externally?
Mm. Oh gosh, probably so many different ways. I think the first, when I first started kind of being on this path of self-discovery and
Mm,
improving myself, kind of a thing, I was in the middle of getting a divorce,
mm,
and I started going to therapy. So because all of a sudden I had all these mixed feelings, and it was after I finished my job with the missiles. I was working in the space program in Houston. I was getting divorced. I had a 4-year-old daughter. I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. Like there were just so many things going on in my life that were seemingly falling apart, and I was confused, and I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't know what I really wanted. Like there was all this going on. And so I ended up going to a therapist who ended up becoming a friend. She was also a single mom of a daughter. And, we had this connection, and that I think was maybe the first thing. Therapy basically was one of them. I then started, meditating.
mm,
That became another. Journaling, because I would find that just getting things out on paper, whether I did anything with it or not, was really helpful for me. Then that's kind of when I decided I wanted to be a therapist, and I changed my major to psychology because I thought what she was doing was really cool. And I was also starting to get into tarot and astrology around that time. And just getting more, I guess, into kind of like looking at things from a bigger perspective and making that connection with, which I feel like I always had some sort of connection with something bigger, that, whatever that is. I had been looking at it through the lens of Catholicism because that's how I was raised, and I went to Catholic school, and that wasn't working. So it was kind of like, so what does work, what is working? And so that's kind of when my whole exploratory journey began. And yeah, so I picked up so many tools. And so yeah, I think now when I discover that I've still got something in there that's not not a true story, what do I do? I mean, affirmations, I know some people say they don't
mm.
work, but I think
Oh, they do.
they do. They really do. And I think you can do them in different ways too, that if you are someone who struggles with them, you can do, like some people do the ask formations, where it's like turn
I
it
was
into a
about to mention that. I swear to you. I was about to
yeah,
mention. They're very powerful, actually. More
they
powerful
are.
than affirmations. Yes.
Yeah, like how am I a successful business owner, or whatever, like turn it into and because your brain gets to work on it, like right away. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, so many things:
Mm,
affirmations, journaling, meditating.
mm.
um yeah,
I
I feel
love
like I'm missing,
I love
but
affirmations, especially when they say, why am I so lucky? Why am I turning anything I touch into gold?
yes.
Things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, I love that. Why
Yeah.
I'm so abundant? Why does money come to me from every direction? Even when I'm don't even know about it. Bring it on.
Yeah.
You know?
Not that long ago, a couple months ago, I did that. It was because I watched somebody on YouTube, and it was just kind of a reminder, like, oh yeah, like I need to be saying this stuff to myself all the time. And so that day I was walking to the gym, and the whole way walking, I'm just telling, just like you, like, I'm like, why am I so abundant? Why does money flow from every direction in all kinds of amounts? Why, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, I find, like, I mean, it wasn't much, but it was a little coin on the street. I'm like, here you go.
Fine.
I go meet some friends for lunch, and the guy, my friends pay for my lunch. I'm like, look at that. The waiter, still don't know why, he brings us a cake. He's like, here's some cake for all of you. And I'm like, and it went on. I got a $3,600 client that afternoon. I mean, like, it went on, and I'm like, why am I not doing this every day?
Do it. I'm gonna start doing it as well. You motivated me.
Reminder again. Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. See, a
Yeah.
reminder. Do that more often. Not only you, me, and everyone listening to this. Even those not listening to this, you need to do that.
That's right. Why are you not listening to
Exactly. Yes.
that?
Beautiful.
And, Payman, I think another key to that is the
Yes, please.
fact that I recognized it. Like, even, okay, I wasn't, money wasn't necessarily flowing into my account, but I found a little coin, but I still appreciated that. Like,
Oh,
I
yes.
recognized
Gratitude.
it. I think maybe sometimes we don't, like, we'll be like, oh, that's just, a penny. What's that going to do?
No.
And we brush it off. But I think it just built from there. It was like, oh, see, money's coming to me. And then something else happened, and then something else. And every little thing that was like cake or whatever, like, I appreciated, like, this thing that I got,
All the great leaders that I listen to, they say it's not about just visualization, but it's about feeling it. Feeling it is the secret of the universe. This is a real secret. Feel it as if it's already here. Feel it as vivid as possible, whether it's being in the house of your dream, the car, the woman or man, the business, the client, whatever it is, your body, whatever. Feel it as if it's already here.
Yeah.
And be grateful for everything. Count what you have. Be grateful for what you have, and don't focus on what you don't have.
Yeah.
So I do that all the time, all the day. First thing I do in the morning is counting my blessings. Last thing at night, and throughout the day multiple times. Always counting my blessings.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And then you said, looking at your path, you did this, work at and all this amazing position. But then you said you got into coaching. Why did you leave behind this very interesting and lucrative career to get into coaching?
Okay, so at the time that I got into coaching, I was in technology already. I was running a service desk at an oil and gas company in Houston, the second largest one, that had a lot of pipelines all over the US.
Which one?
And
I work in oil and gas too.
Enterprise Products.
Okay. No, okay.
Yeah, it's natural gas liquids. So its competitor was Kinder Morgan. I don't know if you've heard of them. That was the main
okay.
competitor, but there's different pipelines across the US that, yeah. So anyway, I was working for them, and I discovered this thing called coaching. And I started taking classes in it, and then so what happened, my daughter graduated from, I was still a single mom. She graduated from high school. And at that point, I realized that we used to have all these consultants come in and tell us not necessarily tell us. What they would do is they'd interview all of us managers and be like, what's not working and what would make it work, and all this stuff. And then they do this presentation and sell it to the big bosses who are paying them like $300 an hour to ask us what we've already been telling them they needed to do, right? And then they'd make a presentation, they get paid a bunch of money, and they'd leave. And at one point I'm like, I want that job.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, nobody's listening to me as the person who is in this job. And then I still have to end up in the day-to-day dealing with it. And what I really like is change, right? I like fixing things and then having a new problem to fix. And so I became a consultant. And so that's when I actually left. I was doing consulting. I did it for 5 years and I absolutely loved it. I was flying all over the United States, like I said earlier. I was going into mid to large size companies, into their IT department, working on strategy with the CIO, and then developing processes to help them run more efficiently, very Virgo. And, I loved it, but what was literally killing my soul was the travel. And it was not like travel to Portugal, right? It was travel to Cleveland, Ohio, or it was travel to,
especially in winter.
Milwaukee. Well, that was my best one. Milwaukee, Wisconsin in February. It was like
amazing. Where do I sign up?
Right.
And you bring your bikini and your sun cream,
It was, and even when I didn't have, even if I went to a cool place, I didn't have time to be sightseeing. I was working, 12-hour days while I was there. Then I was getting on a plane coming home for the weekend where I would dust my house and mow my lawn and wash clothes so I could repack and leave again for the next week. And I had no social life. I tried to have a social life like in my new city where I happened to be working at the time. But it was just eating to the point that it got to where I was like starting to like I'd get on an airplane, and even if I was upgraded to first class because I had so many points or whatever, I'd be sitting there with my glass of champagne with tears rolling down my eyes, like, and that feeling that like, oh my God, I don't want to be doing this again. It started getting sooner and sooner in the process, to the point of like on the Thursday night when I landed back at the Houston airport and I was back at my house, it would start at that point thinking, now I have to wash my clothes so I can repack my suitcase so I can go again on Sunday. And there just came a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I called my boss, and I don't advise this necessarily, but I called my boss and I said, I can't do this anymore. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, I think it means I'm quitting. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I knew at that time there was something with coaching, and there was something maybe with astrology. I hadn't figured it out. But yeah, I don't even remember what your original question was or if I answered it.
I have no idea neither. I'm just listening to you. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No, I think it was about what was the question again?
I feel like it was something about doing coaching and
yes,
leaving.
how do you get into coaching? Yes.
Yeah, and leaving it, that's what it was, leaving a cushy job. Right.
Yes.
So, my parents
they must have been horrified.
Oh, horrified. You got this degree, we helped you, get like this aerospace engineering.
Why are you throwing it away? You lost your marbles?
Or, you have this beautiful 6-figure job where you get to fly first class and, go to these, like, what are you doing? And yeah, there was a part of me that was like, what are you doing? But there was also a part of me, it's those golden handcuffs they talk about.
I was about to
right?
say it. Yes.
You are like stuck because of like the health insurance. In America, you have to have a job to have the health insurance, and like
you hate it, but you can't quit it. Yes.
You're like you're in what's the word? Indentured servant, right? You're stuck there because of all these things. And at what I could feel my soul shriveling. Like I don't even know how else to describe it. Like it was being sucked every time I get on one of those planes to go somewhere I didn't really want to go to. And then I had so many miles that I could probably have used to go to cool places, but I didn't want to go anywhere because I was always going somewhere. So I would just want to be at home, like, and
Relax. Yeah.
I just can't do this
Do the simple
anymore.
things. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I get you. I hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So how long
there
did
it
it
is.
take you from the time that you started to resent your job to finally say, you know what, I'm done with this? And you called your
Ooh,
boss and and you told him.
it was probably about not quite a year. I'm
Mm,
gonna say between 6 to 9 months, maybe somewhere
mm,
around in there. And what triggered it, the job I was working on,
mm,
I had told him I didn't want to travel. That was part of it. And I was going to have to travel to the next one. Like that project ended that I didn't have to travel for. And then the next one was going to be travel. And it wasn't far travel, but it was still like, I'm still leaving my house and having to stay at a hotel. Like, I mean, it was still, and that I could, like, if it was like, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like that was, I couldn't do it.
last job. Couldn't you have found a job that didn't require you to travel?
Well, I tried, but as a consultant, you're traveling. And in fact, I ended up not right away. I was doing some other things. I did technical writing for a while. And then while I was doing tech, I probably should have stuck with that because that was one of the best jobs ever, being a technical writer. I actually really loved it.
Mm,
But then I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was more money, who knows? But I saw a job where I didn't have to, it was a consultant job in Houston that said no travel. And because all their clients were there basically, I guess. And so I got a job there and I worked there for 2 years. And I was the one person who ended up having to travel. Not a lot, but once every other week, I had to go to Bartlesville, Oklahoma on the company airplane
wow.
because they had it was, my client was ConocoPhillips, and they had their tech, because we were IT consultants. Of course, their IT department was in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So and I'm like, oh, the irony, the one.
You were going to all the most exotic place in the world, eh?
Let me tell you, middle of Oklahoma. Who doesn't want to go
I
there?
hope it wasn't during hurricane season, eh?
Yeah, tornadoes,
A
right?
tornado, yeah, yeah.
They're in Tornado Alley. Yeah. No.
Wow. Okay. And then when you get into coaching, so the first morning you woke up after quitting a job, what went through your mind to say, what the hell did I do? Am I crazy? Or were you
I don't think I
excited?
did that right away. That kind of came a little later. I think I was really excited, and I was taking all these coaching programs and marketing classes and, all the stuff, and getting my website, all that. And so there was some excitement. I think the oh my God, what have I done happened a little after that.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's also about the time that I got the technical writing job, because it was the kind of job that I didn't have to take home with me. And actually, they let me work from home, so there was that. And it was very set out. Like, nobody calls a technical writer at 2 a.m. for an emergency. It just doesn't happen. Like, you can put it away and wait till the next day to deal with whatever is, So it was, yeah. So that kind of helped me while I built my business
so
as well.
technical writer, what were you doing? Like copywriting for, for like, yeah, what do you call it? Instruction guides for tech companies, things
Yeah.
like
So
this.
yeah, it was literally, so based on my past experience. I worked for the veterans, the VA, the Veterans Association in the US. And they had, they have a system of hospitals and whatnot. And at the time, I don't know where they've ended up with it now, but at the time they had so many help desks for, like, they would have a help desk for a certain kind of software that one of the hospitals used. And then there'd be another help desk in some other part of the country that helped with some other kind of software. And so they were trying to consolidate to have like one number that all the hospitals could call for all their technology issues, right? And so to do that and to have like a one help desk basically that could then route those calls to the various other, you know, specialists or whatever. So I was helping build that that knowledge base for the one-stop help desk, so they would know, okay, if you get a call about this software and these are the questions, here's things you can try, and then if that doesn't work, here's, you know, where you send it or whatever, to escalate it. So we were building out that whole kind of space for what to do for all the systems that they use.
So how long did it take you for you to see to get traction in your coaching business?
Well, it stopped and started a lot. So, gosh, it probably, you know, I'm going to say a few years, honestly. And in its current iteration, like, because then I would change, you know, I started out as like a purpose coach or helping people find their purpose kind of a thing. It had different iterations, right? And so each one kind of took a little while. But this current iteration, I feel like it really started like full force going in 2020 during COVID. Like a lot of the other things I was doing went away during COVID. And so I was able to focus on this. And yeah, and then even just now moving to Portugal, some of the other things I was doing went away. And so this is it now, you know, and so I'm going to say a few years. Yeah.
Tell us more about your business. What do you do as a coach? What do you focus on and all the good stuff?
Yeah. So I have kind of two, I mean, they're intertwined, but two programs, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So I, like you said at the beginning, I love working with people who feel like they're just like I was that first day of my first job going, this is not it. This is not it. There's something else. And, you know, where maybe they feel like they're trying to fit in a place because that's where they're supposed to be, but it's not necessarily where they should be or want to be, and helping them kind of transition into more of who they are and being able to just be themselves. And that often translates to, not always, but often translates to them starting their own business, or, you know, even if it's a side hustle or whatever. And so business owners as well, small business owners. So it's that kind of either I'm stuck and I want to get out of this, and or you're transitioning or have a small business. And so those are kind of my people. And I use astrology as the methodology for either determining, you know, vocation, like if they're like, I have so many things, I don't know what I should do, like helping out with that. And then I also do astrology of the business, where I look at the chart of your business. So your business has a soul, and it has its own wants and its own needs and its own mission. And how do you look at your chart and your business, how do they blend? I've even helped like some people who are starting a new business choose the birthday of their business, like choose the start, so it coincides with what that business does. But even when they're naturally born, just like people, it's really cool to see how I don't know, like how aligned, you know, what the person had in mind for their business and how it and what it does, how aligned they are. But the whole idea really is that people are doing what they're meant to do. They're expressing themselves fully, not some socialized version of themselves. And if they're doing that through their business, then how to get them into that flow with their business, right? So that they don't get burned out or feel like they're in another corporate job. It's just that now they're the boss instead of somebody else. You know, sometimes people start a business and they work themselves into this, you know, stuck at a desk for 10 hours a day kind of thing, and they start getting burned out. And so, yeah, by looking at the soul of your business and how best to work with it and in it, based on your chart as well, I really just want to get people back into that like joy of who they are, expressing who they are through their business and being in flow with that business.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
So why astrology, and is that something that you already knew and you understood that? That's something that you learned, and then once you learned, you were like, wow, I need to share this. So two questions: why astrology, and how are you using astrology to help your clients find clarity?
Yeah. Okay. So why astrology? So I was introduced to astrology when I was about 6.
Oh wow.
Um, as soon as I could read, because my mom had this book, which was really popular in the 70s. I still don't know why she had it. She wasn't into astrology. I don't know if somebody gave it to her, but it was on our bookshelf when I was growing up, and it was Linda Goodman's Sun Signs. And I think it was one of the first books astrology books that kind of entered the mainstream. And this would have been, again, back in the 70s and early 70s. And I read that book cover to cover. I thought it was fascinating. It just went through all the sun signs, and it told a little story based on the story of Peter Pan. She would take like characters from Peter Pan and build that into the description of the sign. And I just thought it was fascinating. And anytime I met somebody and they were like, "Oh, I'm a Libra," I'd go run to that book and look up Libra and what does that mean? And so that was kind of my first introduction. And so that planted the seed. And then later, probably around, high school, college, I got a little curious about it, but I still wasn't really into it until I was working at one of my first jobs. And one of the assistants to one of the managers, and this is back in the day where the managers had the office and the assistant was like outside their door, had their own desk kind of a thing. And she and I had become friends, I guess, because I probably had to, work with her. And she did astrology for fun. She goes, "Oh, let me do your chart." And this was still like, we didn't have software back then. Like, she created it by hand. And so that was my first chart that I had done. She had me as a Leo, probably because of some rounding error, because I am like a 0-degree Virgo if you do it by a computer. And so for a long time, I thought I was a Leo. Then I got like a real like professional. So this is now, I think by the time I had gotten divorced by this time, and I got a real professional reading, where the person like did it on the computer and found out I'm a Virgo, which I went through a whole identity. I mean, imagine thinking you're a Leo and then being told you're a Virgo. Like, I had to go through a thing that I'm not all special like the world thinks Leos are. I'm the annoying over analytical one.
You're a special Virlo.
So anyway, yeah. So but that person told me so many things that I was like, how do you know that? And it wasn't just, this kind of vague answer of how they knew it. They literally would like point to something in my chart and go, "Oh, because of this." And so my Virgo analytical mind loved that. It was concrete. It was something I could, see it in black and white. It wasn't like, "Oh, because I'm getting a message from wherever," which
Download, yeah.
no problem with that. Believe me, I'm not dissing it. It's just more that when I saw that they were able to literally like show their work,
Oh yes,
I was like, I need to learn how to do that. And so I just started taking classes from their teacher, actually. And the rest is history. I've been taking classes ever since. I never stopped learning. And then so I guess the more I learned, and that was, 30 years ago when that all started. So I've been on that astrology journey for that long. Then the whole coaching thing came up, and, coaches use a lot of assessments, often they'll use like the DISC or the MBTI, the INFJ or the whatever you are, right? And those are all great for what they do. But again, they're putting you into a limited box, right? And astrology is the best assessment ever because it is unique to you. There is nobody else like you. Yes, there might be what we call astro twins that have the same kind of birth information, but because of slight differences and because of free will, there are things, you know, even twins a few minutes apart can have very different lives, right?
Sure.
And you can see it in an astrological chart. Like, it is unique, and it's more refined than any assessment out there. It's just more bespoke to the person, right? So there's that. So it's the best assessment ever. And not only is it a great assessment, you also get timing. You get, what are the themes coming up for the year? What are the best times to do a launch? What are the best times to take a break? What are the best times to put out educational material? By working with the flow of the earth and the universe, you then get in the flow, and now you can run your business and be in your business and not have that burnout sensation because you're working with it.
Do you go to the defense industry and tell them what is the best time to launch a missile or anything?
I'm not going to tell them that. No.
The best time to launch it is never, you know?
Never, exactly. Big
Wow.
fat zero on that one.
Wow, fascinating. So I've always been, you know, captivated by space, just like you. I wanted to be a pilot growing up. At first, I wanted to be an astronaut. My nickname growing up was a pilot. I love flying. I spent ungodless amount of time on planes. But so astrology, I'm intrigued. How do I go, and how does anyone go to find out more about their chart and to find out about themselves and the business?
Well, they go to my website probably.
Yeah, that's what is your website?
Follow me on the socials. Yeah, my website, which is kind of in the process of being redone. It's more reflective of when I first started doing this in 2020. I was doing slightly different focus than the business stuff. But in my shop, I have what I'm offering, but I'm rewriting it so it's more from that kind of business perspective. But yeah, I mean, there's several ways. So one way is you can go to, there's definitely some websites out there if you just want to pull up your chart, you know, to see what it looks like and where things are. You can do that. I have a Facebook group where I do some videos. I'm planning on starting a YouTube channel. I keep saying this before the end of this year. I know you're one of the people I've told, and I've made that commitment. So it is happening. So there will be a YouTube channel. But yeah, I mean, there's so many, you could just Google astrology and find all kinds of stuff. I think the problem nowadays is you end up getting every person and their dog who's taken one little astrology course, and now they're calling themselves an astrologer. And so the question becomes, how do you find someone who's, you know, really, really knowledgeable? Yeah, so that's, you know, and there's different kinds of astrology, there's different, you know, modalities, whatnot.
So what information do you need for someone to be able to tell, to give them a good report about themselves?
You need the date they were born, the location they were born, and the time. And sometimes the time is a difficult one, but it's also the one that can change the chart the most. Because it determines the whole setup of your chart, which is basically a wheel of life where each little section represents some aspect of your life, whether that's money or health or relationship. So if you don't have the time right, that turns the chart, right? Like, and so what each house is representing looks different. And so it limits, if we don't have a birth time, it can really limit, like there's still stuff that people can learn. It just won't be as in depth. And there's ways to hone in on that and figure out, it's called rectifying a chart. figuring out by backtracking and looking at events in life, like what the birth time might have been based on, like when you got married or when you graduated from whatever. Like there's ways to kind of try and figure it out. We'll never know if it's true or not, but we have to kind of trust a little bit in the art and the magic of astrology as well. It has science, but it also has, this element that's a little
How does it work? Do you get the information beforehand, you do research, and you send them a report a few days later? Do you do it live with them on the call?
yeah, I get live with them because
Wow.
I think you can put your birth information into some website or whatever, and a report can be generated. But what you'll find with those reports is there might be conflicting information because it's literally just reading things kind of in an isolated
Generic,
way.
yeah.
Like you need that human touch,
Customized, not just cookie cutter, just copy paste.
right?
Yeah.
To see because there's a blend and there's something happening between all those things that doesn't get picked up in those reports. And I feel like I don't really enjoy like just writing something and sending it to someone, because there's also a magic that happens together. So what I do, I get the birth information from them, I create the chart, I do some analysis of it, and then I get on a call with them, a Zoom call like this, where I can have a conversation, because things that each house represents, some of those areas represent many, many things. For example, the 5th house represents pleasure, anything that brings us pleasure. It represents creativity. It represents entertainment. It represents children. It represents things we do for fun, or gambling even falls under there. So that is a wide, from gambling to children, like, you're like, how does all that, so if I start writing something and saying, and this year there's going to be a focus on your children, and you're like, well, I don't have any children, right? That's where the conversation needs to happen, right? I have to have some feedback from you to where you're like, I can tell you like, okay, there's this area and here are some of the things of this area. And you can be like, oh yeah, it's the, I don't know, I'm starting a new hobby and I love it. And, like, it's going to be more that, right? And I don't think you get that when you just get a written, you don't get any of that when you get a written report, basically.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, fascinating. We can do an entire episode maybe in the next week or week after, just talking about that. And even if you're open, we can even do a live reading, because I'm really curious to see.
I have your chart, so
I can be your guinea pig if you want,
yeah,
I
I'd
give
be
you
happy to
information.
do like mini reading for you.
Can do that
Yeah.
next week. Absolutely. I would love to.
Okay.
And
Yeah, let's
I'd be honored to. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Tell us, share with us an example. And I have so many questions. I'm gonna ask you those questions next week when you do that live
okay.
reading.
Yeah.
So let's start wrapping up this one. So share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients as a result of you helping them understanding the astrology.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta pick one. Hold on. Let me think. Okay. Well, I have like 3 floating around in my head. Okay, I'm gonna say, okay, so this was a person who was kind of in a, I don't know, like kind of a funk with their business, I guess. It had been going along and it was okay, but they were slumping a bit, and the energy wasn't really there anymore. And so they had a reading with me, and we did a little bit of coaching around it. And this is the part I love, when I'm telling them things that I'm seeing in their chart, that they were like, I knew that, so they're already like getting this sense of, this is a direction I need to go in. And so being able to say that, I didn't know that, and I was able to say, like, this is a direction that I see is, like a good direction for you. based on the astrology, and I could point to why. And they're like, oh, like this relief, like just seeing them, like, oh, like, okay, I'm good. And now I can take steps forward. Where before they were stuck in that, I don't know, is it this, is it that, is it, should I do this, should I not do that? And being able to provide that confirmation and validation, they were able to then actually get off of that slump and take steps forward into the direction that already their soul was kind of nudging, and they just needed that little, like, yep, you're in the right direction, and that little, push get them going, and they were off.
That's amazing. How are you getting your clients?
Well, I'm doing podcasts like this. I'm on social media. I'm in Facebook groups where I'm meeting people. I'm doing a lot of networking, like how you and I met. Just, getting out there and meeting people really is the biggest way. And then those people liking what I've done with them and telling other people. So word of mouth is another big one. And then, like I said, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm a little nervous, but I am going to do it because I just feel like it's a great way to get in. It's not so much I want to make money from the YouTube channel. It's more like I want to just, spread the word.
Absolutely. It's not, don't try to be perfectionist, because if you try to be perfectionist of the perfect setup, you're going to wait forever. It's not about you or me. It's about your message. If you go on my YouTube channel, if you look at my very first 5-10 episodes, they're not good. The camera is way too close to my nose. I only have a big nose, so it make my nose like 5 times bigger. It was too dark, and then I realized it's not about me. It's about the message. So I leave it on purpose for my audience, for my students, for my academy to see it. So don't let that stop you, because it's not about you. It's not about that. The only thing that is a non-negotiable, make sure you get the highest quality sound possible, because that's something, if your sound is not, if the quality of the image is not good, people will put up with it, as long as the sound is good and the message is valuable. But if the sound is bad, you will not, you will lose them in less than 2 seconds. So make sure you get
how is my sound now?
You sound like you're coming from out of the caves on Bora Bora. No, I'm joking. No, you're
I
good.
wish.
No, is it Bora Bora? No, Tora, whatever the caves in Afghanistan, that's what I meant. When Bin Laden was hiding, I'm not talking about Tahiti, this is Bora Bora and Tora. It's a big difference,
Yeah, it's a big difference.
The right one. No, your sound is awesome. But the good news is you can grab a very good quality starter microphone for under between $50 to $100 on Amazon. That's what I did. When I started my podcast 3 years ago, I got mine for $63 US.
So I have a Blue Yeti.
It's perfect. It's a great startup microphone for a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever. Yes, you're set.
Okay, good. So I have one more story to tell you. I know you need to run this whole YouTube channel thing. So I have been putting it off because I have this idea that YouTube has to be perfect. Like people edit, they do intros and outros and put B-roll, and they do all this like editing. And I don't want to be a video editor. And I don't have the budget to hire one. And so that is what has kept me from starting a YouTube channel. So I've been doing Facebook Lives, and I'm okay with that because I feel like people are more forgiving of lives because it's live. And they're like, oh,
Patricia, it's not about that. If you go on my YouTube channel, I still don't do that. Again, what matters is your message.
Right. So the story I have, so this was my thought, right? Well, I'm not even going to tell you this roundabout way. Through 3 different friends of friends recently, like a week ago, I here in Braga met somebody who knew somebody is one of those. End up meeting this woman. We get online and we have this introduction, and she's like, oh, well, what I do is I help people create their YouTube channel and feel comfortable on camera. And I'm like, well, of course you do, because I've put that out in the universe. And so here you are. And I said, well, I told her what I just told you. Like, I feel more comfortable doing lives because I feel like there's some forgiveness and there's not with a YouTube. And she goes, oh, no. same thing you said. She goes, you can do lives in YouTube. You can do lives anywhere. And she goes, that's what I do. I just do a live and then I chop them up and make shorts out of the live, and that's it. And I'm like, and so I went on her YouTube channel, and I kid you not, we had literally just hung up. She had gone off and made a video on don't let your fear of editing stop you from creating a YouTube channel. Like literally what I had just told her my concern was. She had made a live, she had posted it, and I'm like, she's wearing the same thing literally that I was just talking to her. So I know she just did it. And then she, since then I've been seeing her, she made that video into some shorts, and every day I see a new little short, from that video. I'm like, okay, she just modeled perfectly, that I have no excuse anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't let that stop you.
Yeah, so it's coming.
Awesome. And also I'm happy that you're going on a podcast too. That's amazing. But nothing beats having your own platform, because you get access to people that you normally wouldn't. And also you can monetize your podcast in ways, if you do it the proper way, the way I teach it, that I teach you how to monetize, start your podcast, YouTube channel, and monetize it from day one, even if you have zero audience. This is what I teach, because the traditional way to monetize a podcast or YouTube channel is build a massive audience and make your money through download, sponsorship, and all that. That's good, but that applies only to celebrities or people with massive existing audience. But for the rest of us, it takes 5 to 10 years to build that audience. When I started, I didn't have that time. And this is what I've been teaching my students. So look into that. I told you before, and because podcasting, when done properly, it's a game changer. Podcasting is what opens the door and attracts your exact ideal audience. Because again, what is business? Business is not the numbers game. Sure, numbers matter, but ultimately it's a relationship nurturing process. And how do you establish that relationship at first connection? Get your foot in the door, so to speak. Doing a podcast, getting to know the people, building the trust rapport. This is exactly what we've been doing, Get to know each other. We had a call, get to know about you, know about me, and then invite you on the podcast. And then once you know someone, you build that rapport. There's no need for you to pitch, to sell, or as I like to say in a cheesy and funny way, there's no need to seduce or kidnap someone to do business with them. It's a natural, automatic, organic progression. Hey, what do you do? I do X for Y. Hey, that's what I'm looking for. Can you help me? Sure, let's talk. That's it.
Yeah.
So this is why podcasting, it's a game changer. It changed my life. It changed the lives of my countless students. And when you're ready, I'm here for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Welcome. Now let's wrap things up. To finish, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. Ready?
Oh gosh. Okay.
Oh no, gosh, no.
These rapid fire make me nervous.
Oh yeah. No, don't worry. I'll take it easy on you. What's the best piece of advice you've received in your life so far?
Oh, you have everything you need to do what you want to do.
Preach. And the worst piece of advice?
Don't do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Play it safe. Play it safe.
Won't work, or this is why. Yeah.
Absolutely. Imagine that you were blessed with a time machine and you can go back in time, and you're sitting face to face with an 18-year-old Patricia. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Oh gosh. I think I would just tell her you are worthy.
Oh yes.
You have value, and anything that you do or create has value.
Absolutely. Beautiful. I know you don't have your podcast yet, but imagine you had your podcast today and it's very successful, and today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, which is yourself. What's the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. First thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah. I think the first question I would ask would be something along the lines of, what took you so long?
And what's your answer?
Not valuing myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Now, the last question that I ask all my guests, and that's my favorite question, and that is, what is the smallest thing? And by small, I don't mean something small. I mean the one thing you've done that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound positive impact in both your life and business? For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Patricia?
Mm.
The one decision
gonna,
that, yeah.
Well, it is small, but it was the first time I posted on Facebook about astrology, because at the time I thought they're going to burn me at the stake if I do that. You know, there was a lot of real fear around it. And so just taking that one step and realizing the world is still turning and I'm still breathing, yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, there's so many other things I want to ask to you. Fascinating story, fascinating path. We haven't even talked about living in Portugal. So we'll do that next time when you do we have to do part two. So part two, we're going to do that. Plus we're going to do a live reading and I'll be your guinea pig. Let me know what you need from me and we'll rock and roll. So listen, Patricia, I salute you. Oh, before I say that, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Probably either Instagram, Cosmic Energy Coaching, or on Facebook. They can find me, and I have a group and a page called Cosmic Energy Coaching. Basically, if you search Cosmic Energy Coaching, I think anywhere, probably find me. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Listen, I salute you. You're truly with the heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world. Your presence, your impact, your smile, your contagious laughter, your vision, your impact. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. Talk to you very soon. Ate logo. Take care.
Ate logo.